Welcome to Fulcrum Intel Digest, the podcast.
Today, we're going to try and cut through some of the noise surrounding a really fascinating topic.
Yeah, one that shows how tangled up history, identity, and, well, even modern social media chatter can get.
Especially when it comes to something as fundamental as land. What looks like maybe a simple border issue on the surface, it's actually this incredibly complex tapestry.
Woven over centuries, really. Lots of change, shifting loyalties.
Exactly. And our focus for this deep dive is that long-standing land question between Lesotho and South Africa.
Right. And it's not just about, say, a recent vote in parliament or something. It goes much deeper.
It really does. We're talking evolving ethnic identities, the legacy of colonial borders, those lines drawn long ago, plus decades of grievances, and just the shifting politics of the whole region.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. So our mission today is to give you a kind of shortcut to help understand the underlying forces shaping all these conversations about land, identity, sovereignty, in that really crucial part of Southern Africa.
We'll look at the history, the challenges that came after independence, what's happening politically right now.
And we have to talk about the role of social media, too, which is sometimes surprising, sometimes, frankly, alarming in how it amplifies everything.
The aim is to help you navigate it all, get the insights, without feeling, totally overwhelmed by the complexity.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
We cover more topics like this every Monday and Friday. So if you'd like to stay up to date, click the subscribe button and give this video a like. Now let's jump in.
So let's journey back to the colonial period. That's where the seeds were really sown, isn't it?
It really is. And what's fascinating, maybe striking is a better word, is just how fundamentally European actions redrew borders and reshaped identities.
Yeah.
Setting the stage for so many of the issues, the grievances we're still seeing today.
It's a stark reality.
Yeah.
European nations just carved up Southern Africa, often with, very little regard for the people already living there, their land, their social systems. And this really crystallized in 1868, didn't it, when Lesotho, Basutoland as it was then, became a British protectorate.
Right. That decision, the primary reason was to protect the Basotho people. They were under Moshu I, a really astute leader, protection from Boer expansion, from conflicts with the Zulu. But the consequence, the direct and really long-lasting one, was this division of Basotho communities.
So some ended up inside what's now South Africa, others in Lesotho proper.
Exactly. That colonial line drawing literally split communities.
And it wasn't just drawing lines, was it? The British brought in the paramount chief system, too.
Yes, which was designed, to centralize control, make governance easier for them under colonial supervision. But it fundamentally disrupted the existing social and political ways of doing things.
For groups like the Hubi, Batlokwa, Bakolokwe.
Precisely. Many of them had strong ethnic, cultural ties right across these new lines. Suddenly, they found themselves governed differently depending on which side of that arbitrary border they landed on.
That must have been incredibly disruptive.
Hugely. And in doing that, the colonial powers kind of created this simplified, almost monolithic Basotho identity.
Like a mega-tribe idea.
Sort of, yeah. It made governance easier, helped with things like organizing labor, but it just papered over all the complex affiliations and diverse social structures that actually existed.
And then those artificial borders, they just got harder, more rigid over time.
Absolutely. Especially through the 20th century, reinforced heavily by South Africa's apartheid regime. Movement became restricted, political rights curtailed. It just deepened that sense of division.
But even with those rigid borders and apartheid trying to exploit divides, it's interesting that connections did remain, right?
Oh, definitely. You see it clearly with Basotho migrant workers going to South African mines. Those family links, economic ties, they persisted.
So the political separation hardened, but the human connections didn't just vanish.
Not at all. Which brings us to the key point here, really. These aren't just historical details. These decisions, made by outsiders over a century ago, created real fault lines.
Or lines that are still active today.
Exactly. They forged divisions, grievances that didn't just disappear when independence came. They actively shape people's lives, the politics, right now.
Which brings us neatly to that next crucial phase. Lesotho gets independence, inheriting these exact same colonial borders and all the baggage that came with them.
Yeah, and if you zoom out for a second, this period really highlights those huge challenges of inherited sovereignty, the difficult quest for national identity, for political leverage, for a brand new nation.
Right. So Lesotho becomes independent in 1966.
Yeah.
But it hasn't exactly been smooth sailing since then, has it?
Far from it. There's been ongoing political instability, coups, external interventions, all things that have, inevitably weakened internal governance.
Yeah.
Made it harder to speak with one voice.
And its relationship with apartheid South Africa during that time complex doesn't even begin to cover it, I imagine.
Incredibly nuanced, sometimes resisting, sometimes cooperating out of necessity, especially with those labor agreements for the mines. It was a very delicate balancing act.
Born out of necessity, as you say.
Yeah, and it complicated Lesotho's position regionally, internationally.
And it's in this context, this often frustrating reality, that we start seeing these territorial claims emerge, claims on South African land.
Exactly, often linked back to those ideas of shared ethnic heritage, historical rights, drawing directly from the colonial divisions we were just talking about.
So what's driving them, fundamentally?
Well, you've got deep-seated frustrations. Lesotho's small land area, high population density, its heavy economic reliance on South Africa. These claims become part of a broader search for identity, for political leverage.
Even though bodies like the African Union, SADC, generally stress respecting colonial borders to avoid conflict.
Yes, that's the official regional stance, overwhelmingly. Respect the borders you inherited, basically.
But Lesotho's situation is still really delicate. The areas claimed are important to South Africa, economically, strategically.
And the people living there, across the border, they share these incredibly tangled histories, family connections. It's not simple.
So when you think about it, you really have to appreciate the immense weight of inheriting a legacy like that.
Absolutely. The very lines on a map drawn by others decades ago still dictate so much about a nation's future, its economy, its sense of self.
Okay, so what does this all mean for today? Because we have seen some pretty bold political moves recently that pull these historical issues right into the present day.
Right, and this leads us to a really critical question, I think. Are these modern claims genuine demands for, say, land justice? Or are there maybe deeper political calculations happening?
Things aimed at consolidating power, perhaps, or gaining influence regionally.
Could be. It's rarely just one thing, is it?
No. Take the 2023 Lesotho parliamentary proposal, for example, the one designating parts of South Africa as Lesotho's land. That wasn't out of the blue.
Not at all. It's part of a pattern, really. Actions that are sometimes quite assertive, sometimes maybe more rhetorical, often aimed at regional negotiations, or maybe playing to a domestic audience inside Lesotho.
They definitely draw attention to those long-standing grievances, land, sovereignty, recognition.
Without a doubt. But you absolutely have to see them in the context of Lesotho's internal politics, too. Trying to build regional influence, trying to consolidate power at home, especially when facing domestic challenges.
And there's a real danger in this, isn't there? Pushing these claims without proper regional cooperation, without international dialogue.
Oh, absolutely. It can easily lead to conflict. History in Africa gives us examples: Nigeria and Cameroon, Eritrea and Ethiopia. These border disputes can become incredibly volatile if they aren't managed carefully through legal frameworks and mediation.
And that colonial legacy, the mega-tribe idea you mentioned, that still plays a role today.
I think so. That history of concentrating authority in elites, like the paramount chiefs, often alienated wider communities.
So these past manipulations mean that modern claims aren't just about simple compensation or righting historical wrongs.
No, they're navigating much more complex territory. Social, political, economic factors, all tied up with current power structures.
And critically, we need to think about who's actually making the claims. The elites involved. Do their agendas always align with the people on the ground?
That's a crucial distinction. Sometimes the people pushing these claims might actually benefit from the current situation in various ways. Their personal or political agendas might not be the same as the needs of ordinary people on either side of the border.
So it's about power as much as history.
Often, yes. These historical manipulations keep shaping modern claims, making them about much more than just the past. They're deeply embedded in contemporary power dynamics.
And then there's the whole social media dimension, the Wild West, as some call it, amplifying everything, twisting things.
Adding a whole new layer. And what's really unsettling, I think, is how those genuine historical grievances are being actively exploited online, twisted into disinformation that creates a really dangerous environment.
It's quite something to observe. This whole topic just exploded across social media, didn't it? Different people, different groups pushing very different, often conflicting narratives.
Yeah, and it gives you a startling, sometimes worrying insight into how these issues are being perceived and frankly, weaponized online in the region.
Let's look at some of the specific types of stories that have been circulating.
Okay. Well, for instance, there were these quite alarming narratives about alleged rebel training happening in remote areas, sometimes linking them to specific political groups in Lesotho.
And often with completely unconfirmed claims about who might be funding them, right? So sometimes pointing fingers at external states.
Exactly. Unsubstantiated allegations flying around. Now, what's interesting but also quite concerning is that while you did see some users pushing back, calling it disinformation, which shows some media literacy is there.
Right.
The original posters, when challenged, sometimes told people to just, and I quote, ask a large language model if they didn't believe it.
Wow. Relying on AI for truth.
Yeah, it shows this worrying reliance on AI, this almost blind faith in its infallibility for complex geopolitical facts. And tied into this, disturbingly, we also saw anti-Semitic rhetoric being used to fuel some campaigns.
Likely connecting it to wider geopolitical events, like South Africa's ICJ case involving Israel.
That seems the likely connection, yes. Using that context to inject anti-Semitism into this separate issue.
And there were other narratives, too.
Oh, yes. Around the same time, you had claims popping up about, allegedly, foreign militaries illegally training South African citizens, including some foreign nationals living in South Africa.
To do what? Overthrow the government?
That was the claim. To overthrow the South African government and seize land. Some posts even drew comparisons to other active conflicts in Africa, presumably to ramp up the fear factor.
That is incredibly dangerous talk, especially, as you say, if it targets groups like South African farmers who are already facing violent rhetoric from other directions.
Exactly. It's leveraging existing fears and finding scapegoats. And then there's the language used, the word terrorism.
Which is so loaded, so subjective.
Fundamentally, it lacks a single objective definition. We saw online users labeling people involved in these alleged training camps as terrorists. And it's not the first time certain groups, particularly immigrants or those labeled criminals, have been branded this way online. It shows how charged language is used to create fear, justify hatred.
So if you try to sum up the intent behind this kind of online rhetoric,
it seems plausible that some actors might be trying to fuel anti-Semitism, perhaps hatred towards groups like Boers, by painting a picture where, say, Israel and South African farmers are somehow backing a threat against South Africa coming from Lesotho.
Which forces you to ask that crucial question.
Who actually benefits from this? What's gained by stirring up this kind of intense division and hatred? The answer often points towards the threat actors who are using the situation, using South Africa as a stage for their own ends.
It's a chilling reminder of how easily disinformation spreads online everywhere, not just here, and how vital it is to be critical, to try and discern truth, especially when the narratives are designed to incite real-world violence.
Absolutely critical.
So, okay, given all this, the deep history, the politics, this digital propaganda mess, what's the way forward? Is there a path towards stability?
Well, if we connect it back to the bigger picture, I think the fundamental focus has to be on cooperation, not conflict.
Right.
And that has to go hand in hand with promoting critical thinking, robust fact-checking, especially in that online space we just discussed.
Absolutely. And those long-standing ties between South Africa and Lesotho, the social ones, the economic ones, they're not just history, they're an asset, right?
A huge asset. They should be actively leveraged, used as the foundation for resolving the core issues, things like social inclusion, economic growth for everyone, genuine land reform.
And any lasting solution, it can't just be top-down, can it?
No way. For any settlement of land issues or identity concerns to stick, it has to be inclusive. You need governments, regional bodies, civil society, traditional leaders. Everyone needs to be involved. That's how you get buy-in, legitimacy, sustainability.
And it makes sense that if Lesotho itself becomes stronger, more stable democratically, more sustainable economically,
then those kinds of expansive territorial claims become less attractive as political tools. If things are going well at home, leaders might not need to resort to that kind of rhetoric.
So ultimately, it's about reconciling those colonial legacies with today's realities.
I think so. Focusing on peace, progress, mutual respect for sovereignty. Probably the most constructive path is maintaining the current borders, but really fostering creative, mutually beneficial cooperation across them.
And on the digital front, combating the disinformation.
It's absolutely imperative. Authorities, social media platforms, content moderator, they all have a role in monitoring online discussions for truth, but also for potential harm.
And a responsibility to act when lines are crossed.
Yes. Removing content that violates terms of service, that incites violence or hatred, is crucial to minimize real-world harm.
Could there be more cooperation between, say, South African and Lesotho authorities on this? Like intelligence sharing on disinformation campaigns?
Definitely. Collaboration between law enforcement, governmental OSINT teams, that's open source intelligence, could be really powerful in tracking and combating disinformation. It could genuinely save lives by stopping the spread of hate used for personal or political gain.
So understanding all this complexity, it isn't just academic, is it? It gives you, the listener, a framework.
Exactly. A way to critically evaluate similar conflicts elsewhere, to recognize that delicate, often dangerous interplay between historical grievances, political ambition, and this modern digital battle for the narrative, for truth itself.
So maybe the final thought to leave everyone with is this. We live in an age where history is constantly being re-argued, relitigated through the lens of today's politics. And it's all amplified by social media algorithms. The real fight maybe isn't just over the physical land anymore. It's over the stories we tell, the narratives that define who we are and what kind of future is possible.
A powerful thought. How much are we really willing to learn from the past? Enough to stop the echo chambers of right now from shaping a truly dangerous future.